Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken Live Sunday Q&A. My name is Garen, as I'm sure most of you know by now. And very good to see you all again. Seems like we were just here a few hours ago. Oh, that was the other channel. Must have been my evil twin brother. Well, we are going to have an interesting discussion today. And we have a lot of good topics lined up, and we're just going to give a minute or two for people to get online. There's Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. We've been watching as the weather flip-flops here back and forth between a little bit of sun poking through the clouds, and then back to the rain and cold, and we managed to slip a half-hour quick stroll in between the two sessions. So that was kind of nice. Got out and got to see some of the light, and boy, really waiting for spring though. I mean, we have flowers to plant, and we love seeing the butterflies and the birds, and we're building a pond this year that we're still working on from last year. We went and we picked every one of the rocks ourselves from the far side of this lake. We kayak across about 30 trips last year just to gather the rock for it. It was absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, we are going to get started, and we are going to start with one of the simplest ones to deal with, and that is actually the Ark of the Covenant. And unfortunately, the Ark of the Covenant suffers from what I term Hollywoodism. Okay? The truth of the matter is that the Ark vanished in almost 600 BC, okay, and has not been seen since. There has been nothing but... oh, hello, Jackie. Nice to see you, too. And Cindy's here. Excellent. So the Ark of the Covenant, it literally vanished. The Babylonians conquered the Israelites. And, you know, this ability to conquer the Israelites at all comes into question, you know, what was it about the Ark? And Hollywood, of course, has composed all sorts of stories, which unfortunately people would tend to buy into a little too readily. The Ark was not constructed out of gold. It was constructed actually out of wood. There's very specific instructions for its construction. That's a lot of shuns. And it was gilded in gold, and it was supposed to hold Aaron's rod, a cup of manna, or a bowl of manna, and of course the stone tablets from the Ten Commandments. And it was also talked about as being the vehicle through which God would speak to Moses when they were traveling through the desert, for example. Now, even to touch this ark accidentally, according to Scripture, was to have God strike you dead. And this actually happened to one of the ark bearers. And you can imagine this man would have simply tripped and touched the ark. And we had approached this point before and was instantly killed for it. Now, is there a likelihood? You know, I'll tell you what I see. You know, when you know, if I don't often like to talk about what I believe as opposed to what I've directly experienced, because I never like to have the two confused with people. But I will tell you what I believe, for what it's worth, about our biblical history, about our humanity's history. My honest belief is that we were indeed here as a developing species. A much higher advanced species came here. They interbred with some of us. Those passages we see in the Bible under such things as the sons of God, you know, liked human women. So they came down and had sex with them and gave offspring. And these offspring were giants. These offspring were, you know, capable of fighting large animals, and they were strong and powerful. All these things point to me that the human species in its current form is an evolution out of that melding. Perhaps for the purpose of labor, whatever the case may be, whatever was wanted here, whatever was here that was necessary, was taken, or they took enough of it and chose to leave. We have developed since that time. There are too many artifacts placed strategically throughout our planet, following planetary ley lines, planetary lines of energy. There are the hieroglyphs visible only from space. There is too much evidence for me to say, in my belief, that mankind is not a product of, in a very real way, alien influence, alien intelligence here. That is my honest belief. I have that belief because I've experienced lifetimes off-world, but it's only a belief that we are the product of alien intelligence, because I don't have direct knowledge of that or evidence of it. But that makes very real sense to me. So, the Ark of the Covenant. What could have the Ark of the Covenant been? Well, it was also said that when they were crossing, taking the Ark through the Nile, correct? That the sand would dry underneath the feet of the priests and the bearers walking the Ark. There were all these things attributed to the Ark. Could the Ark have been some sort of energy device? Absolutely. I believe it is quite possible and probable that it could have been some sort of focused energy device. It could have been as simple as a consciousness focuser and amplifier. You know, similar to what Frank Herbert in Dune brought up, the weirding modules, they were called. They took thought and took the word after the thought becoming the word, and changed that into a vibrational, took that vibration and actually made use of it and focused it and harnessed it in a weapon. Absolutely. Is it possible? Should we pay much attention to those sort of things? Nah, not really. I mean, honestly, it's all about eyes forward, all about eyes of where we want to go. Yeah, the walls of Jericho came down, you know, the Ark and the musicians led the way. And it's funny because the musicians had to play a certain cadence, had to create a certain vibrational state, you know, almost as if to either assist or magnify the effects that the Ark had on the walls themselves. So in many ways we can look upon this device, and rather than thinking of it as a divine device, I personally think of it as captured or gifted alien technology. You know, is it out there buried somewhere? Possibly. Could it also have been just simply taken back, realizing that it was being abused? Sure. I would buy that 100%. Those are my beliefs regarding the Ark. Not my knowings, my beliefs. We're going to take a look at the new souls, and this is a common one that I hear people get into, and I really like the wording. Are we all recycled? Is there anything such thing as a new or old soul? Well, let's take a look at it like this, okay? Everything that ever was, always will be, and has been contained within the One, within the creative essence of all that is, that creative sea of consciousness, God. We are eternal beings as well as part of that. We are all in that way recycled because we have all been here since the dawn of time, since the timelessness, before time. We have all been here. Now, our journey is a journey of forgetfulness. It is a journey of a shard of creation, agreeing with all of creation to forget what it is. Why? So it can have the best experience possible. You know, it's like going on a grand adventure that's been, you know, like if you do a night, and I've done a couple of these and they're a lot of fun, but you do like a murder mystery weekend. in a big old mansion. Now, you know intrinsically when you arrive to the mansion on Friday for supper to begin the weekend that it's all a play, it's all a show. It's the same thing with our existence here. If you knew it was all a play, it was all a show, it wouldn't be as real. I mean, the murder mystery weekends were fun, but what's funner still? Not knowing it's a play. Thinking it's for real. You show up at this mansion, you're planning to have dinner with a number of guests, and a murder breaks out. Red rum. How much more real is it? That is the same with us. We are all the same age. We are all eternal. But in our levels of forgetfulness, we can choose in the, what we would term as the afterlife, okay? A different vibrational state of being, dimensionally. We can choose to come here and display a level of oldness or newness, a level of forgetfulness. And those, of course, are only exterior appearances. Because we are all the same age, but a soul that, you know, human beings, we're always thinking in terms of advancing and not advancing and good and bad. And up. It's all this relative stuff. And it's really hard to talk about the spiritual realm in relative terms. But the best I can say is this. You are choosing a level of awareness all the time in it, that you are manifesting in your being in accordance with not what is seen here in the human realm, in the relative realm, but what is seen in the spiritual realm. So the appearances here can be of someone who would be like considered a very new soul or a very old wise soul. But that does not necessarily correlate with what's actually going on the other side, with the reason behind why that being is manifesting that particular egoic entity. But as far as actual age goes, we are all ageless. There are no older, there are no newer. There are simply parts within that become more consciously aware before other parts, and contribute to the whole raising its conscious awareness, accelerating the process of all the other parts raising their conscious awareness. We can compare that to T cells in our body. You know, one T cell will initiate. One T cell will be the one that recognizes the threat and jumps on it. Sacrifices itself. Why? To show the others what they need to do. And then all the T cells will attack it. They'll attack the unwanted cell within your body, and they will consume it. And they will kill it, and then they'll remove it from the body. But there's that one that performs the sacrifice for the whole. There's the one that goes after the cell first. Those consciousness, those supposedly individual beings that we would look upon as one entity. And, you know, I understand it's really hard to get it out of your head when you think of Christ to not see that, you know, guy with the long, sandy, kind of reddish hair and European looks and a little bit of a beard and, you know, blue eyes. I mean, we would all think that that is Christ. Yes, we did all come into existence at the same time because we are not what we think we are. We are not these individual beings. We are part of the same glorious sea of consciousness that has always existed. That which is God. You are not old, you are not young, you simply are, always have been, and always will be in this glorious evolution of consciousness as part of the whole. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in our identity, to think that we are this physical identity, and we are not. This physical identity is an expression of a higher spiritual truth into the relative world. All of creation is literally raising its own consciousness, looking back upon itself, evolving, and you know, people have this false impression that that sea of consciousness does itself not evolve, and of course it does. The future for every species in this universe, the overall picture, I can't put it into words. I mean, I've had a few glimpses, and I got to tell you, they'll just blow your mind. You know, you have an eternity of fun ahead of you. You really do. Don't worry about how old or young you are. You're going to come back. Sometimes you're going to come back and you're going to have the appearances of a being that's never experienced any lives at all. And appearances, you may be appearing to going through a physical hell. But we are all these spiritual warriors here expressing ourselves, becoming conscious creators, learning how to create responsibly. None of us need look further than our own higher being, that which we truly are. All our experiences help that sea of consciousness evolve. Absolutely, Cindy. All of them. You know, we think we're separate, but we are not. You cannot differentiate us at an energetic level. It's all overlapping. It's all one giant space. And this is going to come into our talk about CERN and subatomic particles, which we'll come on to next. And how our quantum science, I mean, the first time I got involved in quantum theory, and I don't want to go too far down that way yet, but, you know, I looked at it and I was overjoyed because to me, it proved everything that the Hindu and that the old rishis of India, thousands upon thousands of years ago, what we see in the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, it proved it all. It showed God to me everywhere, instantly. That, it's funny, science is what reaffirmed my faith, not religion. Go figure. Our experiences help that sea to evolve. Not only do they help that sea to evolve, they help every one of us evolve here on the planet in this relative existence. Time and time again, you will hear it from me and every other spiritual teacher out there. And I do not consider myself a spiritual teacher. I don't think that that's a title one bestows upon themselves. I wish to share with you what I've experienced and what I've come to know. You will choose for you what you wish to take. And I would want it no other way. I would want it no other way. As knowledge in our physical world becomes available to like, this is the way I look at it. Let's say you have a particularly nasty relationship with your family. And as I said, we're going to do a production video on spending a week with your own family and surviving it. But let's look at it like this. Let's say before your conscious awareness came up, you used to battle quite bitterly with your husband or wife. And when you looked back over all the years of your relationship, you realized that, yeah, there was some really great times when you weren't in each other's face and doing your own thing. But in reality, you had truly parted directions and paths quite a few years ago, and the reason all the anger was going on and all the fighting was because both of you unconsciously or subconsciously knew it and weren't willing to face it. Your conscious awareness coming up to realize these things, one half of the two of you, allows change, allows choice to come into the picture all of a sudden. It allows the recognition of what the core issue is underneath the symptoms. Millionaires off that video. Oh, you know, if we wake people up, that's a gift for me. That's the real gift. We teach ourselves and we teach everyone around us through our words, thoughts, and deeds, our experiences and how we portray those experiences out into the world, how we behave. That is our greatest gift. That is what evolves the whole. When we come from a higher place of consciousness, we are less likely to engage in egoic activities like having a yelling match with our neighbor, or judging as severely. We tend to work and watch to pull ourselves out of that. We tend to become more aware in our lives of where we are throwing our power out to other people. And as we become more empowered, as I've said to Kelly, we were just talking about this yesterday, and she will confirm that then when we are out places, I don't have to try to be a noticed presence. As a matter of fact, I don't really want to be. But everyone who we run into says, you've got this palpable presence. It's not like a wall you run into, but it's definitely like you've walked into this energy space. You've walked into this presence. It's palpable. I could feel it. It's because I've reminded myself, I've returned that power back to myself. And what does that allow me to do? It allows to express to others a love and compassion that at my lower state of consciousness I wasn't able to give. Through my own fears, through my own lack of awareness. And I don't beat myself up for that because, as I've said, I couldn't see it at that level of consciousness. But I am responsible. So, for example, we have a neighbor a couple doors down that, last year when they moved in, he parked right in front of the no parking sign, and his wife, who was bringing her vehicle as well, parked, and they blocked the entire end of the complex so no cars could get through. And, I lit off on the guy. Well, here I am a year later, higher state of consciousness, and now we have deep discussions together. Now we talk for 10 or 15 minutes when we run into each other. Why? Because I went back over there and said, you know what? We don't have to consider what's happened before. We can just start again. If you're willing, here's the ground rules. Let's just start again. And we did. Our higher states of consciousness improve, help, evolve all of it in all realms. This is the thing that we fail to recognize as responsible creators. As creators, whether we think we're responsible or not, conscious or otherwise, our creations resonate on every layer of reality. What we do here is talked about, laughed about, joked about, watched in earnest, and in fun and in fear sometimes and in frustration. You see, the universe can manifest every single being that's ever existed at any time. And this is where we get so confused about souls and spirits and whether we can contact someone on the other side. There is no time you are out of contact. As soon as you bring that person to the forefront of your attention, all that what they were and still are is there with you instantly. All of it. All of them. It is our blocks. Our lack of willingness to accept with faith in what we truly live in and what we truly are and what we're truly part of that gets in the way of that. Well, I hope that does answer the question on souls. I really do. And with that, we're going to move on to one of my favorite subjects, and that is, I'm going to talk about CERN. Now, this was really funny that this came up. I have been to the CERN site when I lived over in Europe. I wasn't there for the very minor role I had in the Atlas project, actually. That was theoretical on paper. but I did get to go to the site. It is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. They wanted to build it in the States, but they couldn't get enough money together, so they did it over in Europe. And you're talking about the largest machines in the world, okay? The Atlas experiment, which is a particular, it's a collider module, okay? It takes the beams of light and focuses it's like a light lattice focuser. It's the only way I can describe it in non-technical terms, okay? And the Atlas experiment is, in U.S. old school terms, about 85 feet long, I guess, and in diameter, about 85 feet in diameter, and about 175 feet long, and weighs 14,000 pounds or so. It is an incredibly large, sophisticated piece of equipment. And what the Atlas does actually is it takes the beams that have gone through the accelerator and then splits them and collides them and then gathers the remnants in order to produce data. And the CERN site produces petabytes of data every year, and we are learning so much from it. And if I'm to explain to you what a particle accelerator is, okay, what I'm going to do is I want you to picture a donut in your head. And we're just going to cut a tiny slice out of the donut as if we were on a really super diet, and we're going to stick in there a toonie. And the toonie is the Atlas. The toonie sits right there. So what happens is there's a beam that is shot into this tunnel that is roughly 30 miles in diameter, like a big racetrack. And that beam is accelerated using supercooled magnets. Faster and faster and faster until it approaches a percentage of the speed of light. And then there's a second beam shot in the opposite direction, and it's ramped up in the same way. And those two beams are brought into focus with each other and smashed together at power levels measured in giga-electron volts. It's a tunnel. Sorry if I said tunny. Whoops. It's a big tunnel. Underground, okay? Toonie. Oh, a toonie. Yeah, sorry. A toonie. Oh, that's what you mean. A toonie is a $2 Canadian coin. Sorry. My bad. Yeah, just put a disc in any slot in the donut. So this is what happens, and the Atlas is designed to draw off those collision particles and then measure them and take a look at them. And when we talk about the Higgs particle, the Higgs is in the class of particles known as bosons. And, there's been a lot of hype and a lot of misinformation about this, okay? It is not the God particle. There's no such thing that we found yet. What the Higgs boson is the particle that allows mass, that gives other particles their mass. Because we've never found out why an energy particle weighs anything at all. We've never been able to understand why. We've always concerned and worried about what the mechanism was, because it plays big into the standard physics model. Could throw that whole model on end. And the standard physics model is talking, really discussing the interactions between four forces. The electromagnetic force, the weak electromagnetic force, the strong. It is and in this we see that the Higgs particle, and the Higgs particle by no means is not the end of the stream. Okay, the Higgs, we've able to reveal the Higgs because of the ramp up of the energy production capable into the 100 to 140 giga-electron volt range for the collision. There are other particles waiting. To date, we've discovered over 200 particles. One of those types of particles are known as quarks. And quarks come in 6 flavors. They come in up and down and top and bottom. And one of the most interesting ones, of course, is charm. You know, we talk about strangeness in quarks. There's 6 types or flavors of them. This is the almost fantastical world of quantum physics. It's actually quite beautiful. We everything we know about a quark, we infer from a bunch of quarks in the form of a hadron, because we can't actually see the quark. We just infer all of this. And hadrons are particularly, well, not all hadrons are actually stable, but, you know, stable hadrons, for example, are things like protons and neutrons. And we're going to take this a little deeper, because this is where things really get fun. And I know, and I'm sorry, Cindy, I was talking with Kelly either, and I mean no disrespect on anybody, but I'm having a really hard time, because in this particular subject, I'm used to speaking to scientists. So I'm trying to find a way to express this in a more open way, because there's a beauty underneath this all. And here's, okay, so, and I do not mean dumb it down. Please do not take it that way. I'm trying to find a way to reconceptualize it for you. Okay, let's look at it like this. In every single quantum physics experiment, what the observer, what the scientist who's conducting the experiment, what the observer wants to see, the particle does. So if the observer takes a light beam and wants to do an experiment on a light wave, the light will behave as a wave. If the observer wants to do an experiment on that same light beam as a single packet of light, a single quanta of light called a photon, and you can think of a photon as a little golden pill of light, okay? Then the light will behave as the observer wishes. This is the best way for me to, and this was the moment for me, that physics, quantum physics, just proved God. Every single quantum experiment ever performed today is done by a computer without any knowledge of the people who set up the experiment as to what time the experiment is going to happen. Everything around us responds to thought. All of it. It's all consciousness. It's all responsive. All of it. All of it, at every level, is responsive. This is the beauty that quantum physics shows us, to the point that today they don't tell the person who designed, the scientist who set the experiment up, the scientist who wants to do the experiment, they don't tell him or any of his researchers when the computer is actually going to run the experiment, because even those people thinking about their experiment while the experiment is going on will queer the experiment. The particles are all responsive to our thoughts and intentions. Every single one of them. Go talk to any quantum physicist. You don't have to believe me. I'm not a quantum physicist. What do I know? I'm just a strange guy from Canada. Oh my God, I'm going to hell. Love it, Jackie. This is it, though. To me, quantum physics proved what the Hindu and the Rishi masters of old have always said. All of it is God. All of it is the sea of consciousness. And every tiny, minuscule particle that we find reflects a desire to do our will, to respond to our thoughts. We are conscious creators and unconscious creators. But did you all think I was just, talking through my tattoo when I said that we were all conscious creators? Your very thoughts have very real creation. Listen, if we're all in hell together, at least we know we're going to have a really great time. A really great time. We're going to get to, hang out for a long eternity. So what are you up to today? Well, I'm going to be tortured and burned for about 6 hours, but then Garen's doing a 1-hour session on yoga. Yeah, down by the burning pits, just around the corner. Quantum physics, to me, literally proved the existence of this creative sea of consciousness. I fell in love with it. I did a little bit of theoretical work and came up with the patterning for the light lattice that focuses the beam, and did that in conjunction with a professor at MIT way back in 2002. So I do have a tiny bit of a history with this, and it is glorious to me. A lot of physicists, a lot of quantum physicists, they actually found themselves becoming unintentional spiritualists. They began to think about this and realize, well, wait a minute. What is the consciousness that's responding? And here's another thing. We want to talk about, and I'm trying to put quantum physics in a term that you can all fall in love with and see the wondrousness of. A particle, a little golden pill, if we take one golden pill and we put it beside another golden pill. So now we have two golden pill particles. And golden pills are easy to see. Well, sort of. Okay, there we go. So you have this little golden pill here in the sunlight. So these two golden pills, what happens is those two golden pills, they communicate through a process we're not aware of yet. They bind themselves together. Yeah, SPF 10,000 sunscreen. And a big air conditioner. So those two pills, they communicate with each other. Now, those two pills are sitting side by side, those two little golden particles. If we take one of those pills, and I take it and I put it on the other side of the universe, okay, I travel at the speed of light for 13 more billion years and drop that pill off there. And then I travel all the way back to the first pill. If I poke the first pill with a needle, the pill on the other side of the universe immediately exhibits the poke. They are linked across time and space. They are linked beyond the speed of light because it happens instantaneously, and nothing that is spread apart in our relative world happens instantaneously. It's called entanglement. This is another beautiful spiritual truth of quantum physics. We are forever changed by our interactions with others. Cindy, you had asked, so we evolve the whole, we evolve that sea of consciousness? Yes. Why? Because every part of our being, every experience, every interaction fundamentally changes the whole. And time and space mean nothing. It's now, right now. This is the gift. This is the magnificent, well, just the wondrousness of quantum physics. You don't need to take anything else home out of this except that, or maybe you're already at home. You don't need to take this outside with you except this part of it. But the understanding, okay, is that, you know, the pictures we see of atoms and thinking things are solid, those are just conventions to try and explain things. They're not. They flicker in and out of existence. They're hard to keep track of. One minute they're there, the next minute they're not. The sea of consciousness, God, as the Hindu said, okay, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's literally God at play. We're playing hide and seek with God all the time. Children in the playground. Let's look at the next one here. The next one is a really good topic again, and this is signs and synchronicity. And you know, this came up again from some good discussions. And sorry, I'm having real troubles with my eyes and the brightness. I'm getting a reflection in here. And maybe you could try to shut that curtain a little more, sweetie, please. I apologize. I actually had an incident of snow blindness. I was in winter warfare training. It was up in the Canadian Arctic, actually, about 160 miles off the North Pole. And I lost my goggles. And I by the time I got back to the encampment, I was seeing white clouds in front of my eyes, and I spent days blind before my vision returned. And when it did, I have a real brightness issue. It can cause headaches and the whole bit, so I have to wear really dark sunglasses. But let's go back to signs and synchronicity and talk about synchronicity and signs. Okay, that event kept me from being a fighter pilot, because back in those days the eyeglass technology was not sufficient enough to allow the darkening of the glasses to work fast enough. And the helmet visors were not at the level that they are today by far. So, you know, very synchronistic. You know, as I said to my wife, I would have been a terrifying pilot, and I would have probably ended up splattered somewhere on a canyon wall someplace. Why? Because I tried to do something, you know, just a little too dumb. I am a speed demon, so I don't speed. I don't own anything that goes fast anymore. I really don't. I just don't. Signs, everywhere there's signs. Is everything a sign? Is every event synchronistic? Every event is synchronistic. Every single one of them. From the tiniest event to the biggest event. So the real question becomes, well, how do you look at all that? You know, and there is a trap in this. There is an ego trap. There is a little side of us trap that you know, very, as with all things, duality in this relativistic world. When you're going to have this, you're always going to have the opportunity for that. It's a given. So we ask, how do we operate? How do we navigate? How do we recognize the signs? You know, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things, synchronistic events that happens to us. You're thinking about a friend, and the friend calls you. Is that synchronistic? It is synchronistic in as much as you make it synchronistic. Clearly, the two of you were connected at some level for some reason. Now it's up to the two of you to explore that synchronicity. And it's not always easy to do, because you don't always have two sides willing to do so. So you have to learn to explore that synchronicity for yourself. And to do so, you must be very objective and monitor the difference between looking for signs for what you want in thought and an ego, and looking for signs that are showing you the direction you should likely go. And this is the trap. Coincidence. No such thing. Every event is synchronistic. Is every event synchronistic to the point that you have to pay attention to? Not really. The best way to look at this, and this is the way I approach it, okay, is to maintain an open state of acceptance of whatever comes my way. So I look at it without judgment. I look at the offering that life is giving me, that life is bringing, and those offerings are coming at you nonstop. There's no such thing as missing a synchronistic event that is going to have a negative impact on your life. There is not. The universe is, the term I use is self-correcting, but that's not really true because there's never anything to correct. And Kelly and I have talked about this because, the other night she said to me, she says, I got just the tiniest glimpse of the perfection of the web of life. And she says, it just blew me away, that tiny little glimpse. And then she started talking about, well, I can just imagine how much, and I said, honey, live with the glimpse. And then take faith that even though you don't see it, the connection is there. The synchronicity is there. It's already been forgiven. It's already been given before you've asked. There was no saving to be done. There's no asking to be done. There's just gratitude and joy for an existence. And if you can learn to come from that state, no matter what your egoic mind may think of it, over time you will see your perceptions change and you will see the synchronicity in your life more and more and more. And don't worry. Life loves cuffing us on the back of the head over and over again with the same lesson until we finally get it. Unlike the highway, if you miss an exit sign, all of creation is going to bring you back around that next turnabout. So you have another chance to see the exit sign again. In every book, in every way, we are being spoken to. How do we know that we are getting a sign? How do we know that we're getting a verification, a validation? Get out of your head and get into the way that it resonates within the core of your being. And I'm going to give you an example. Years ago now, my aunt, my Scottish uncle had died, and my aunt chose to remarry, and she remarried this guy who decided to start cheating on her. And, this is getting to be an old story with men and cheating. But anyways, she was pretty sure, but she didn't have proof. And I'd come to visit her out of the blue, quite innocent of what was going on. And she said to me, this is what's going on. This is what I think. Can you follow him the next time he goes out and see if he's going where I think he's going? So I did. And sure enough, he was going to this woman's house, and he was there for 4 or 5 hours, and then he drove home and gave some lame excuse. Now, my aunt confronted him, of course, and ended up breaking up with him in the whole 9 yards. But during one of our conversations, and okay, keep in mind at this point, I don't think very much of this guy. But during one of our conversations, he said to me, he said, I don't think we're actually meant to know everything. And I gave it about as much attention as I did the rest of him at that time. It was to think, well, you're pretty much dirt with me right now. But something twinged inside me when he said it. And it kept coming back to me. And then I had to face that indeed life, all of creation, was handing me a message, a truth, a sign through him. Because at that time of my life, I was searching. I wanted to know. I wanted to know it all. And if you've ever seen the Indiana Jones movie where they're in the so-called Mayan temple and it's actually an interdimensional spaceship, and there's this Russian scientist woman who wants to know it all. So the alien entity, he gives her all of it. And what does it do to her? It pops her head off. It just literally blows her being apart. She wasn't ready for it. Raising our level of consciousness, that's what brings the knowing. To strive to know is not the path. You don't need to worry about that. Strive to raise your consciousness. Allow yourself to be. Relax in life. The more you do these things, the more accepting you become of what comes your way, the more the signs will come softly. And the more present they will be. And what's really happening is you're becoming more present. You're becoming more still. And therefore life can speak to you, because life speaks gently. Until it finally realizes that gently just isn't going to work with us. And then it gets firmer and firmer and firmer. Every event has a synchronistic aspect to it. You choose, as one or more than one, to what level that will be taken. You are the creator of your existence. Life will never stop putting the opportunities out there. We don't have to worry that we've missed something. The only time we've missed something is when we buy into the idea that we've missed it. There's always hope, always tomorrow, always another sign, always life speaking to us. The sea of creation, the universe of love talks to us every moment of every day, through every medium, and most especially through our own experience. This is the truth of our being. Last topic. And boy, I appreciate the patience of everyone, and hope people are enjoying where we're going with this sort of thing. We're going to talk about recess. And this came up from another group member, and you know, I didn't get the impression that they were necessarily struggling with it, but at the same time, it was like, come on, give me a break. What we're really talking about is, like, when does the dark night of the ego end? And it's really not going to end in this existence, probably. But you can do a lot to dispel the night. Okay? And, you know, Kelly and I have talked about this before. And rather than trying to take a break, which is very difficult, although it can work. I mean, it really can. And when I take a break, I head out into the woods. I talk to nobody. I take 2 or 3 days and I just go out there. And that's my break. But one of the best things, and almost a necessary thing, these things, as you're awakening, create a holy space or a holy place within your home, within your room if you have a room, a seat on your car if you're living in your car, a corner of your tent if you're living in a tent. Have a little holy space, a place where you are comfortable, a place where you feel at peace, a place where you agree with yourself. You will not bring your negativity. You will only bring your acceptance, your compassion, your stillness of being. And use that place to return to over and over again. We imbue these places with our energetic intentions. And having a holy place, you know, I strive to make the whole of our home a holy place, so that everywhere we go in our home, we're reminded of nature. We're, you know, we have sayings on the walls, or I've routed them into wood, or things to remind us always, to remind us, to help us remember. And in fact, all of creation is a holy place. But we're surrounded by a lot of people who, in the depths of their slumber, are not aware of this. So do find and create a holy place for yourself. And in a worst case scenario, as in the time, for example, when I spent a little time in a jail in the jungle, your holy place can be within you. You can create that place within as well. Regardless of your perceptions, care for yourself first. And I am guilty of this as well, and I think we are all guilty of it at some time or another. We allow ourselves to get drawn out too much. We give too much. And we don't take enough back. Caring for ourselves first, working on our conscious awareness, acting from that place. And the way I do it, to be honest, is I make forages out into the sleeping world. Try to raise what consciousness I can. Try to interact with everyone around me in the best possible way. And when I feel my energy levels dropping, I will return to my holy place to recharge. I'll return to our home, to our yard. I'll meditate. I'll take some time away. Wherever you're at is where you're at, and there is no wrong in it. There only must be recognition and then a decision on how you're going to work with that as your being is moving itself forward. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. And probably most importantly, and I keep coming back to this, meditate, meditate, meditate. And a lot of people have trouble sitting still. I mean, there is a 45-minute Kundalini raising meditation that I love to do. And I don't honestly do it with Kelly very often because she's just a little wiggler. 5-10 minutes in, the wiggling starts. And for the next half hour, there's a lot of wiggling going on. And, meditation can be active. You can meditate while doing yoga. You can meditate while walking. You can start just with a few minutes. Conscious breathing, becoming aware of your breath, returning yourself to that place of centeredness, reminding yourself over and over again, even if it's only at the end of the so-called tough day that we've had, that we can choose peace now. The recess comes, the break comes when you have fully accepted and surrendered to what is right now. The only reason we think we need recess otherwise is because we have not fully surrendered. And yeah, sometimes we want God to stop knocking on the window. It's like, okay, I asked for this, I get it, my awareness has come up, but damn it, I need a break. It's okay. The sea of consciousness is used to being ignored. Jackie. So you're saying you're really bad at it, or? Oh boy, that's funny though. Oh man, yeah. Well, Kelly, she's like a Mexican jumping bean. It's really quite funny, actually. She couldn't sit still for 5 minutes if her life depended on it. I keep telling her, if we're in the jungle somewhere, she's the bait. Because she's going to draw every predator for 100 miles. Laughter. Big part of it. Learn to not have a me in the way of getting offended. No one can offend me. Nobody can put me down. Nobody can make me feel bad about myself. It just doesn't matter. Sometimes I go out in public and I make a laughable fool out of myself. Hey, huh? But it usually brings a lot of good laughs. It really does. And this is what life is about. Recess only truly comes when we've fully accepted the present moment, when we're fully accepting whatever we are in right now, right here, fully surrendered to it. In the meantime, until we all get to that glorious point, take breaks, look after yourself, create a holy place, watch your perceptions, right? Our perceptions are what we think about what we think, and they cause us big problems a lot of times. That's about it for today. I hope it has been an interesting and an informative hour. And boy, let me tell you, I've been yakking my head off today. and I do hope that some of it has actually turned out to be beneficial. I really do. we've got an exciting week of production videos coming up this week, along with lots of other meaningful things on the go. So we will say much love again and namaste. I recognize the divine within you as the divine is within me. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. Look forward to many more questions, many more answers, many more good experiences together. Take care.